another thing that's getting people's attention is rising interest rates. And, one of the phenomenon that we have talked about for many years here at the Concord Coalition is, there's a vulnerability in running up so much debt as we have over the past 23 years or so, that, there's a cost of servicing that debt. And surprisingly, that cost has been very restrained because interest rates have been much lower than expected. And so people have said, well, gee, I mean, you keep saying that this is a problem, but the interest costs are the same as they were even when we had a lower debt because we've got such a low interest rates. Well, that certainly has been changing, recently, and particularly very recently, as interest rates are moving back up to the highest level in about 20 years. And that has some deep repercussions for the budget. So, Tori and Steve, what do you think? I mean, is this showing that deficits really do matter? And if so, what is the consequence for the federal budget? Tori, you want to kick us off?
Well, I think the message here is that, when the Federal Reserve is artificially keeping interest rates low, debt is not a problem. But when the Fed decides to exit, quantitative easing becomes quantitative tightening. Fed's no longer buying government securities. Other countries are no longer buying treasury securities. Yeah, there's a cost to our debt.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, free money can mask a lot of problems, and we're starting to see those problems right now.
Steve, we got still about a minute and a half left or so to contemplate this.
Just to put it into context, I mean, I'll do some math here. So, 30 trillion in public debt at 2% interest rates is 600 billion a year in interest cost. Well, 30 trillion in debt, if interest costs go up to 5% instead of 2%, that's 1.5 trillion in annual interest cost. So, I mean, more than we spend on pretty much anything. I mean, we're spending 1.2 trillion on Social Security. If we spend 1.5 trillion on the national debt on interest cost, you're talking about some pain and heartburn. Eventually, Congress can't sustain those sorts of interest rates, that sort of interest cost. I mean, it would just, the compound effect on the budget is just, it becomes, prohibitive.
Well, and it doesn't stop there too, right? We talk about interest rate crowding out. When we talk about government, you learn this in economics 101, as the government borrows, it pushes up interest rates. That moment we're finally seeing it, but those interest rates affect the private market too. Corporations can't borrow money as much, to grow, and it affects consumers. And so, next thing you know, not only we have high interest costs for government, we may actually be looking at a recession that the Federal Reserve's been trying so hard to avoid.